Hi, Donna.
Hi, Al.
How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. And I've been thinking about aging lately, the process of aging.
Well, that's happening to all of us.
Yeah, I've turned 60 this year, which is kind of an interesting thing. It's an interesting threshold in terms of age. And I have to admit, I've had a little bit of difficulty adapting to the idea that I'm now 60. Whereas before I was in my 50s, and that seemed like a really different kind of decade than the 60s. And so now I am in the class of adults that I've always referred to in the past as older adults. I can now go to Ace Hardware and I can use the senior parking and get my senior discount on Wednesdays.
Congratulations. Welcome to the club.
Thank you. Yeah, there's going to be some payoff to this, right?
Well, yeah, I think we're really lucky to be in our 60s, actually. I feel like it's very good fortune to have made it this far into life. And reflecting on aging is useful for all of us. As an older adult, I'm so aware of self-image. You know, what does it mean to be older? What does it mean to be in your 60s? Many of my friends and colleagues are in their 70s and even in their 80s, bless their hearts. May we also be so fortunate. And as I observe people and their aging, I'm taken by the youthfulness of so many of my friends and colleagues and what people are doing to keep their identity as a healthy, youthful person as they're aging. And it seems to me that one of those qualities is being in the present. Really knowing your friends, keeping up with things that are of interest to you, learning new things. In our situation, it's movement. How much do you move? How much do you get on the floor and roll around? Can you get up and down? Can you garden? Can you play with your grandchildren on the floor? Rustle up your dogs. We're able to do that. And we both practice the Feldenkrais Method. And I'm so grateful to be able to hold my 20-pound, at least, and growing grandbabies and be able to kneel down and get up safely, to pick them in and up out of their cribs safely without hurting myself. That is a gift.
I always emphasize this with my students, my clients. And most of my clients are older adults. They're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that what we do with the Feldenkrais Method is really help us maintain our abilities so we can do the things we want to do. There's some really interesting things that happen as we age. And we've all noticed points in our aging process where things change, where maybe things that were easy become a little more difficult, or you kind of slow down a little bit. There's a change that happens in the brain, in the nervous system. And there's an explanation for that. And that is that get over the age of 50, things start to change in the brain. The myelin sheath between the synapse start to break down. And the myelin sheath is this fatty insulation that allows the synaptic impulses to travel quickly and easily from one place to the other. And when that starts to break down, then those impulses go more slowly, stop altogether, and that is where things start to change. You start to lose ability, start to feel older and move more slowly. And I tell my students is that it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to give into that. So yeah, that is what happens as we age in the brain and the nervous system, but we can do things. We have the ability to learn all the way up to the end of our life and improve ourselves. And that learning is through the Feldenkrais Method, through developmental type of learning that we do in these lessons. And that builds that myelin sheath. And it reinforces the habits that we have so we can do the things we want to do. And we can improve those abilities as well. And so we can strengthen those neural pathways and the synaptic firing so that we can get on the floor, like you're saying, with the grandkids and the dogs, and we can garden. We can do those things that are important to us. I think that's a really important aspect of aging that often is overlooked and underappreciated. But that's where the Feldenkrais method can come in and really make a difference for us.
Yeah, knowing that changes do take place need not hold us back. And all of our students and ourselves, we find that doing a Feldenkrais lesson is rejuvenating. And some days, if you do a couple of lessons, then you get a boost and it carries to the next day and the next day. And you forget about how old you are because you're doing what you want to be doing. It's quite phenomenal. And as people learn the Feldenkrais method, they are so grateful that they have the lessons to do, or they come to our classes, or they have their individual sessions, because they forget how old they are, and they are engaged, and they're excited to do what they're doing. So the identification, or the self-image, as we call it, in the Feldenkrais method really matters. Our mind matters. Our concepts matter. And they have to do with how well we feel and how capable and confident we feel. So embracing ourselves at every age of life and knowing that we can continue to do what we want while using the Feldenkrais method is so incredibly uplifting.
What we want to do changes throughout life. What's important to us changes throughout life. So the kinds of activities we engaged in our youth and in our early adult life or in our middle adult life were really different values. As a young man, I wasn't really even aware of this, but I was very intent on proving myself, proving my strength. And, I can do big things and build stuff and, that kind of stuff. And, I can see that a lot in young men and other people that's a really important part of becoming an adult, is that proving oneself. And, but that changes. As you get older, your values change, what you do change, the things that are important to you change. You get a family, you have kids, and eventually you start to have grandkids and your values change again. And what's important to you changes. So the activities change. And you let go of some of those things in the past and you move into other activities that are important to you now. And some of those may be the same, but you definitely approach them in a different way.
It's such a relief, isn't it, to be older and not having to strive and prove oneself like we did when we were younger.
It is.
Mm-hmm. I remember being with my kids. I was in northern Italy. We were involved with the training program, Mark Reese, and my kids were 1 and 4. And it was a day off, and we were at the side of a river, and I had one child, 1-year-old, on my hip, and the other one I was holding by the hand. And I was hopping rocks, literally. And my mentor friend at the time, Ruthie Alon, was watching me, and I was not aware of that. And after the fact, she said, "You were hopping rocks like a gazelle with your children in hand." And she said, "It was beautiful to see your confidence and your security." And I didn't even think about what I was doing, frankly. I was just having fun along the river's edge with my kids and with her and Mark and other students. And looking back on that, I think that's actually remarkable. I felt no danger, no threat. And I was thinking about that the other day as I was carrying my granddaughter on my hip, walking through the neighborhood. And she's 10 months old, and I like to stop and I have her touch the plants, and her dad grows tomato plants and other kinds of vegetables. And we looked at them together, and she touched and I held her. And I was thinking, I feel lucky to be able to walk around with her like that on my hip. And I'm not hopping rocks at the moment with her, but I think I could still hop some rocks. But I believe I would do it with a little bit more carefulness, being aware that going a little bit slower may be necessary at times. And at the same time, we're spontaneous, in our movements. But feeling the confidence of knowing how to do what I'm doing as an older adult allows me to do what I want.
Yeah, it's interesting how the perspective on, I'm going to say, risk changes, or what we're willing to try as younger people. And when you're young, you recover more quickly from things. And when you're an older adult, recovery tends to be a little bit more slow. But what's really cool about what we do, about the Feldenkrais work, is that we can improve that ability to recover from stuff. Because stuff happens in life. You're gonna fall, you're gonna cut yourself, or something's gonna happen because you're alive, and just stuff happens. And so the thing is, can you recover? How quickly can you recover from that? And the interesting thing that I've had reported to me from my students in my classes and my private students over and over again through the years in the winter months is they'll come in, they go, "Al, I fell." I'm like, "Oh, well, how did that go?" They go, "Well, actually pretty good. I didn't hurt myself." So there's something that happens in these lessons that we're not even consciously focused on. They're not even trying to make happen, that there's a reactivity, a responsiveness to sudden changes where your brain, your nervous system can adapt quickly and protect yourself. And then your recovery is much quicker and you do it much more easily. Like, that's a remarkable thing from this work. And I've seen it over and over and over again.
We often refer to the flexibility in our brain when we talk about the Feldenkrais method, and we have both flexibility in the brain and flexibility in the body. At the time that he wrote his book, Body and Mature Behavior, that was a long time ago. And he said, I'm interested the recovery aspect of being a human being resilient, being responsive, being able to do what you want to do at any age. He was talking about this a long time ago. And we still quote him today from those early writings and see that we understand more and more what he was talking about as we've experienced his teachings over the course of our own lifespans. And having a flexible body means that you have a flexible brain. They go hand in hand. They cannot be separated. So being able to fall down, brush oneself off, and get up and keep going is something that we want to be able to do all the way along. Same thing is true with any other kind of difficulty. I mean, this COVID experience, the sequestering, is continuing after months and months and months. And many people find that they're really able to adapt and keep going under the circumstances of a different kind of lifestyle. And the most adaptable people that I have talked to are ones that are clever and come up with alternative lifestyles, that they've found how to use Zoom, for example, with their businesses. They stay in touch with family and friends. They've made choices that in some cases are difficult, but they also feel like they're thriving. So how do we find ourselves thriving, not striving, as we grow older? So adaptability, an open system, flexibility. What else? What would you add to that list, Al?
Engaging your natural capacity to learn. And there's different ways of approaching that. I mean, there's things people learn, like yourself. You became a painter, and you found that way of expressing yourself through your paintings. And this is an audio recording, but I can see you on the video, and I can see one of your paintings over your left shoulder. Mm-hmm. And it's beautiful blues and reds, and it's a very organic and yet kind of abstract image. That's one thing. And so maintaining a fresh mind, a fresh body through movement, through learning, and the Feldenkrais method, of course, offers many ways to do that, because we are engaging our senses in so many different ways through so many different kinds of lessons, where we really deconstruct our habits in a way, we improve them, we make them richer, more satisfying, more fulfilling. And so, of course, I'm a big advocate of the Feldenkrais method. But I bring up your painting because I think there's many avenues by which people can go and explore and learn and develop. So painting is one, music is another. Just getting out and walking, or if you're into bird watching, go out and watch birds. You can watch birds in a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of things in the pandemic.
So variety is very stimulating. It's inspirational. You referred to looking over my shoulder. And so I want to use the shoulder, so to speak, as an example. So there are so many different ways. Let's say look over your shoulder. So those of you that are listening, in fact, if you're sitting or you're standing, however, look over your right shoulder and notice how you look. And then that's it. And then come back to the middle. And now think about looking under your right shoulder and notice how you, so now you've changed your intention and you're looking under your shoulder, which may mean you're looking underneath your armpit. You're looking under your shoulder. All right, so now look around and down over your right shoulder as if you want to look to the floor. Notice your breathing and notice how your ribs move. Repeat the movement a couple of times. That's it. And the next time, look up over your shoulder, up high. Maybe you want to see a bird flying. Speaking of birds, up high over your right shoulder. Maybe there's a hot air balloon flying around up there. And then come back to the middle. And now notice your right shoulder, your right eye, the right side of your face, and turn to the right and notice how you're seeing to the right. And then look to the left and notice how you're looking to the left. So we just created some variations that had to do with one idea of looking toward and around your right shoulder. We created movement variations. And with that, awareness was developed. I wonder what that's like for you. What do you feel now lingering from that small experiment, Al?
I feel kind of an aliveness and a fullness on my right side. So even though I'm a practitioner, and this shouldn't surprise me, I'm still delighted to find that I turned easier to the right after, that was what, 6 different variations, 5 or 6 different variations in a couple of minutes. Then it was turned to the left. And I turned to the left and I was like, oh, wow, that's not quite the same. And turning to the right, I turned another probably 20 degrees behind myself.
So this is unique to the Feldenkrais method. We can generate so many variations regarding one simple thing that we do. It's quite astounding, actually. And those variations create, we say, new neuronal firing patterns in the brain. So we definitely know that our neuromuscular self-use tends to be repetitive unless we do these funny little games with ourselves. And they wake us up. They wake up your self-observation, the space around you, how you're seeing, how you're balancing. And you can actually implement this kind of experimentation during the course of every day. Just goof around with what you're doing. Pick up a pencil in a different way. Hold it in a different way. Write with your other hand, for example. Hold it, with all of your fingers wrapped around the pencil instead of it being in between your middle finger and your index finger. It's like, all of these playful ways of experimenting with movement wake us up. They create that adaptability and flexibility that we're talking about.
That novelty combined with awareness and curiosity is a really powerful way to improve your brain function, your choices, and your ability to maintain your youth and do the things that are important to you. That's huge, huge. And there's lots of ways that you can do that. You can do it, as Donna was just describing, is making little explorations just in your daily experience, like picking up a pencil or where you stirring your stir fry or where you lift a coffee cup and take a sip of coffee. Do it with your left hand instead of your right. But do it with awareness and do it with curiosity about how it's different. And of course, there's a whole plethora of lessons that Donna and I offer on our websites, mineachievingexcellence.com and donnaray.com, and of course our joint venture, feldenkraisforlife.com. And you can go there, you can find all kinds of resources and lessons that you can get, and you can explore that and just really invigorate your brain and invigorate your life, and live a good, full life as an older adult, because it is cool. It's fun. You've earned it.
Yeah, well, I love this subject. It's very inspirational. I hope that our listeners had some fun and will experiment and, like you said, check out our lessons and see how Dr. Feldenkrais created his method in this way, with the example of looking over your shoulder in a variety of ways to develop awareness, as you said, and it engages us in the present moment because we're actually interested in how we're doing what we're doing. So thank you so much, Al.
You are welcome. I got to say, the subject never gets old.
Love it. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.